BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. And the first thing to say, as always, if you like this upload, you can hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're welcome to do so. But most importantly, at the end, please drop some comments below so we can continue the discussion. And this show now has an Instagram page, BlackBoxNed88. One more time, BlackBoxNed88. And if you follow the show on Instagram, you'll get access to a special bonus podcast talking about music, movies, daily life, and more. BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram. In a previous upload, we mentioned something about the book Lords of Chaos, The Bloody Rise of the Satanic Metal Underground. And we had some discussions about satanic influences in the music industry. But I've been going through the book a little bit more. And one of the sections they talked about is what I call the absolute most fascinating subject in the world, conspiracy theory science. How does a conspiracy theory form? Who believes them? And what are the motivations that drive people to believe in the quote-unquote traditional conspiracy theory? And Lords of Chaos is by Michael Moynihan and Diedrich Soderlund. So I guess you'd say that we had a few discussions about this earlier in this year, 2020, and they wanted to talk about some ways that conspiracy theories function. But for the first time, first we're going to lay out a conspiracy theory, and then we are going to look at what are the mechanics of it, and what are some of the ideas discussed in this book, Lords of Chaos. So the theory that they propose relates to a part of the world called Neuschwabenland. Excuse my horrendous German pronunciation, so we'll just use the English one. New Swabia. Swabia. New Swabia was the Nazi German claim to Antarctica. A portion of the Antarctic continent was claimed by Nazi Germany, and it comes up from time to time in conspiracy theories. One of them that I think is a little bit more famous talks about how that the Nazis wanted to use this portion of Antarctica as a way to communicate with aliens. That's what they were actually doing. They were trying to develop some technology and have this very far out outpost that they could use to communicate with aliens. And the second thing to say is that this book, Lords of Chaos, expanded upon that by talking about people who believed that not only were the Nazis trying to do that in Neuschwabenland, New Swabia, they were trying to build an underground community. Because, of course, there are a bunch of international treaties and such saying that Antarctica should not be colonized. It's only used for researchers. And, there are claims to the land, but they have research stations, ice stations, of course, but not full-on cities and settlements. So the Nazis are living underground in Antarctica, even to this day. And that once again, they're trying to develop this type of technology that they can use to communicate with the aliens. Some of the claims that are made in this book, Lords of Chaos, is not only do they lay out that theory, saying that there are people that believe that, and we could do the entire upload just challenging something like that, but one of the ways they explore this is to say that after 1945, in the Western world, the idea of Nazi Germany was still something that was vilified. That's how all of these types of conspiracy theories form in regards to the Nazis. And my mother would even tell me about this, growing up. There was a lot of anti-German sentiment. She was born in 1950, mind you. And when they would even depict Germans in World War II films, they would be speaking in English, but they wouldn't even have German accents. They would just be talking in anything that sounded not super North American. And so a lot of it is anti-German sentiment post-World War II. But the second thing is, in regards to the UFO claims that they are developing this type of technology that can communicate with UFOs and aliens and all that, that stems from something to do with Cold War sentiment, always thinking that the Soviet Union has this type of secret technology and that they're trying to develop something new, that they're trying to develop something that is going to destroy the entire planet Earth and such. However, though, what was it, 1961 or something? That was the closest we ever actually came to global thermonuclear war. A lot of the fears that people had in the later parts of the 20th century are not completely baseless. We can say that first and foremost, but I mean, do I actually think that Nazis are living under the Antarctic surface and they're trying to communicate with aliens? Not a no, I don't. No, personally, no. I was about to say not exactly. It's like, no, I don't personally believe that. But what I think is, it's much more fascinating to look at how are these influences put in place so that this even becomes an idea in the first place. And when we examined the conspiracy theory book by Jonathan Kay, which was called Among the Truthers, he even says that the United States of America is very focused on rebelling against tyranny, because that was how America was formed. Jonathan Kay is Canadian, mind you, but he says that the United States of America always tries to come up with this idea that there is this outside tyrannical force that can do very destructive things to the American people unless they resort to patriotism. Notice how, once again, the Axis powers, Nazi Germany, the villain from World War II, keeps resurfacing in these conspiracy theories, simply by saying that they need someone to vilify, and they want to vilify this outside tyrannical force combined with some Cold War sentiment, and then you get Nazis living in Antarctica under the surface trying to use technology to communicate with UFOs and aliens and all that. And there are a variety of conspiracy theories that revolve around Neuschwabenland, New Swabia, Nazis operating in Antarctica in general, even to say that they just wanted to collect certain meteorites from some alien explosion. I mean, that's perhaps even a slight misinterpretation, but it is the overall general idea. You will notice it from time to time if you read up on conspiracy theories. Now, one of the things, though, that is mentioned in this book, Lords of Chaos, is a very similar idea that was proposed by an individual named Kurt Eichenwald, and he is the author of A Mind Unraveled, as well as a writer for Newsweek. Perhaps that is what he is more famous for. And when he was on C-SPAN promoting his writings about conspiracy theories, what he tried to say was that the people who believed that John F. Kennedy was killed by the CIA or killed by the mafia are also more likely to believe that John F. Kennedy was still alive. And he made these claims in about 2012 or 2013. Years ago. I don't really know if there's anybody out there that is still saying that John F. Kennedy is still alive. They definitely did when I was growing up, even into the new millennium, talking about John F. Kennedy is in a hospital in Texas on life support. Definitely people talked about that. Also, maybe you've heard something about the old conspiracy theory that Elvis is still alive. Please watch the movie Bubba Hotep with Bruce Campbell to learn more about that. Okay, but what Eichenwald is saying is like, isn't it bizarre that people think that John F. Kennedy was killed by a conspiracy theory, but the same group of people, and they have learned this by studying the demographics, also believe that it is more likely that he is still alive? How could it be both? Well, they talk about this in the book Lords of Chaos to challenge that statement put forward by Eichenwald, as well as answering the question. And what they say is that there is a new term, stigmatized knowledge. And the people who are believing in aliens that are operating with Nazi Germans under the surface of Antarctica are also just thinking that there is some type of stigmatized knowledge, that people are not always telling the truth. The government isn't always telling the truth. The mainstream media is not always telling the truth. And that was something that we talked about in a previous upload as a response to Kurt Eichenwald and his claims about why do they believe that John F. Kennedy was murdered by some conspiracy plot against him, but they're also saying that John F. Kennedy could possibly still be alive in a hospital in Texas, because the whole point is that the official story is wrong and that the mainstream version of the story contains inaccurate information. So then they want to find out, well, where is the exact place where the inaccurate information is? And if these people are misrepresenting the cases or they're presenting some type of fabrication, well, then what really is the truth? And I think that that is the real unification process that a lot of people are doing with this. They recognize that something doesn't seem to add up. And sometimes maybe you can entertain the idea. Sometimes people really try to connect the dots and they insert somewhat of either a fictitious connection, or it's what Jesse Walker talked about in the United States of Paranoia when he's like, human beings are pattern-seeking individuals, and they just try to force some of their own patterns onto the situations, so it allows them to make more sense of the world. And Jonathan Kay said something very similar into in his book, Among the Truthers, when he talks about kind of making a bridge from the ideas to reality. And I just wanted to remind you guys that this channel relies on your support, but never asking for any financial contributions. The way you support this channel is simply by listening to some more of our uploads. And we were just talking about Jonathan Kay and his book, Among the Truthers. So I'm going to include a link to that in the description box here on our upload about Jonathan Kay and Among the Truthers. We actually did a 2-part upload on his book, and it just talks some more about how conspiracy theories function. If you'd like to check that out, that really helps out the channel. All you got to do is listen, never asking for any money. Just check out some more of our content. And now we are continuing onward with this type of discussion. But I think that stigmatized knowledge is a very good way of looking at it. And that's a very nice phraseology that is used by this book here, Lords of Chaos, because the way that Kurt Eichenwald was trying to present his material about this subject was very much in line with something where he's just saying, oh, well, these people must be very gullible. And no, that's not quite it. It's not simply that they are gullible. It's that they are not trusting the news outlets, and they are not trusting the press releases, and they're not trusting the press briefings and the White House press corps. They think that there is something going on with all of the mainstream sources that is inaccurate, and then they want to uncover what the truth could possibly be. But the problem is, though, as we said, sometimes that can go in some funky directions. But the idea of stigmatized knowledge, that isn't crazy. Or just that there is something that is going on and we need to learn about it, because look at the actions of the CIA, the FBI. All of these organizations are doing things like covert affairs in general. What exactly does the word covert mean? Absolutely, things are going on behind the scenes. And this gets into some larger things about the deep state, the shadow government, as well as the concept of the New World Order. And here on this channel, we talk very openly about how, yes, indeed, there is a New World Order. Yes, indeed, there are deep states, multiple deep states, plural. But the way that they function is by using corruption as a means to allow oligarchy to propagate. Absolutely, those things are very real. But in terms of stigmatized knowledge, you can see, though, that the conspiracy theorists are maybe neglecting one thing that the skeptics are really trying to offer. And what they're trying to say is there are cultural biases that are being implanted in the situation so that people are going to start blaming somebody. Somebody is going to turn into a scapegoat. Maybe it's the Nazis. Maybe it's the Soviets. Maybe it's X, Y, and Z. So people are going to just say that there is, well, let's just say that there is a cultural reason why some of these conspiracy theories form. Another point where we have to be very clear on is the fact that conspiracies can often be true. And a lot of these conspiracy theorists out there are going to say things like these conspiracy theories aren't ever going to happen except once in a blue moon, that it turns out to be true. Not quite. Absolutely not. They very well could be true. It's just that they are going to be happening on a much less frequent basis. And like even Daniel Pipes in his 1997 book Conspiracy was talking about this, saying that Hitler created a counter-conspiracy to rise to power in Nazi Germany. And Stalin as well was also what he called a counter-conspiracy theorist. And these people actually were conspiracists in their own right. And maybe you could look at a modern-day example of Viktor Orban in Hungary, where they were plotting and planning behind the scenes. You can use the definition of conspiracy as two or more people who are hiding the truth, usually for a malicious purpose. But, I mean, we want to talk about cultural, ideas that get implanted into the situation. I mean, once again, vilifying the Nazis, vilifying the Soviets, and then saying that they are trying to look into alien technology that the Nazis are after, so they're building these underground camps in Antarctica even to this day. That's the last hideout of Nazi Germany. I don't think so. But I would really like to reinforce a very big point. When you're talking about aliens, UFOs, it's a subject that we haven't really mentioned too much on this channel. However, I think that there is something to say about that. If you look at the stuff like William Cooper, who was, of course, perhaps one of the biggest enthusiasts for UFOs out there, as well as people like Travis Walton. And then you could even Riley Martin, to an example, except he's a little bit different because Riley Martin recalled a lot of his UFO connections under hypnosis years later, whereas Travis Walton and William Cooper say very clearly that they experienced something firsthand. William Cooper, of course, had a very definitive UFO sighting, and Travis Walton claimed that he was abducted for 5 days, going into the apparatus. And we've done one upload about Travis Walton on this channel, and we've talked a lot about William Cooper, but never in that specific way. But it's like, I thought the book Lords of Chaos was almost denigrating what they were saying about UFOs, in the sense that they aren't necessarily recognizing that people claim to have a first-hand connection with this. This goes a little bit more than just speculating. Hey, yeah, maybe the Nazis are living under the Antarctic ice, and maybe they're trying to talk to aliens because they have fancy rocks. Okay, maybe that's what some people are thinking. Purely speculative. Has anyone ever gone to Antarctica and uncovered a photo of the Nazi camps that they're talking about? I think we would have a very different conversation, if you will. But we have the United States Congress putting out the UFO video and such. Mike Gravel, the former senator of Alaska, was talking about this stuff for years. I mean, the whole point is, whether you accept UFOs are real or not, the point is that people have claimed to have made first-hand observations of these things, so then you should be investigating the claims in a different way, as opposed to just saying, well, that's a far-out wacky idea. Maybe I can give you some speculative reasons about why this person is kind of using their own cultural bias to manipulate the situation and get a desired outcome. Okay, so it's like, I think that is something that is a little bit neglected. However, though, in the book Lords of Chaos, they bring up something that I remember reading about in 2012, and it was called the Hollow Earth theory. Now, this stuff gets really complicated because it's not as simple as it sounds, just that, like, journey to the center of the earth, and then there are things that are living underground, subterranean civilizations. It actually can even tie into some other things about how the Hollow Earth theory is that there are many different dimensions and they all can become interlaced. And if you go down under the Earth's surface, and that you actually might be entering into a different dimension and such. I don't know how many people are talking about that stuff right now, but they definitely did back in 2012. And I noticed that people have scaled back the Hollow Earth theory, and now they talk more about the Flat Earth theory. So how on earth will we have any type of Nazi camps in Antarctica that are underground communicating with aliens if we have a flat Earth and Antarctica isn't real? It's just the ice sheet around the pipe hand known as flat Earth. So I don't really think a lot of these things are lining up, but if you ever do look into the Hollow Earth theory, you will find some of the most creative things in the world, like talking about how when there was this thing called the Big Bang, that there were actually the number of universes that was created was something like 1 times 10 to the 1016th power. I think I remember that number correctly. I really think I do. And then they're saying that all of these like universes kind of have overlap, and then they kind of blend in together through different dimensions, and you go under the Earth's surface and you'll enter some of these dimensions. That is one variant of it. The simplest variant of the Hollow Earth theory is just that you go underground and then they're going to be underground civilizations. We could do an upload on that, but once again, I'm not sure how valuable that type of discussion would be. But you can see, though, that I can accept some of the claims from Lords of Chaos, that there are reasons why people believe what they believe. There are cultural influences on what people believe. There are factors, geopolitical factors about why people believe what they believe. And as we looked at the examples that they discuss, Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, or just the, if you look at some of the things like in the early parts of the last decade, when they want to talk about what are people afraid of, natural disasters, things like The Day After Tomorrow and movies like 2012, people really had this type of phobia about natural disasters, and that could implement and have an influence on conspiracy theories. In the 1980s, it was all about robotics, and they had all these movies about different kind of robots and such. Have you heard of The Terminator by chance? So there are influences on why people think in certain ways. But does that mean that all conspiracy theories are false? No, absolutely not. Yet at the same time, I don't necessarily believe that John F. Kennedy or Elvis is still alive. Well, that's all for me now. If you have anything to say at all about any of the things we discussed in this upload, please drop a comment below. If you like this upload, you can hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. And I will see you on Instagram for the bonus podcast, but please check out our upload on Jonathan K., 2-part upload on Among the Truthers. That's all for me now. Until next time.